Welcome to Straight Out of Savannah, where the magic happens. My guest, Mr. Donald Lee, is here. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Donald Lee. Is an Alberta author, musician, teacher, band director, economist, and more. After previous careers in the fertilizer industry and as a band director, he is now an author writing about spirituality and the spiritual perspective on current events. In his band director series of books, Donald uses music as a metaphor for life and the journey of becoming a musician as a metaphor for our spiritual journey. His spiritual work aims to bring spirit into materiality, to help people to be in the world but not of the world, to guide people along their individual spiritual journeys back to God. When the COVID fraud turned his life upside down, Donald looked deeply into what was really going on and wrote an expose book about the many frauds. What the hell is going on? And a companion volume that deals more with solutions to our present problems, the way forward. So, welcome to the show, Donald Lee. So, Donald, your books use the journey of becoming a musician as a metaphor for becoming spiritually awake. In midlife, what does it mean to finally stop playing the music others expect and start composing the score your soul intended?
That's a good question, Tammy. And thank you so much. I'm delighted to be on your show. Haven't seen you for several months now. We met in January 2026 at Podfest in Orlando, Florida. So it's nice to see your beautiful smiling face again, although we're separated by many miles now. So, yeah, in midlife or at any point in life, I have a parable about this. The first book that I wrote is called The Band Director's Lessons About Life. It's a book of 50 little parables. It's a bit like a Chicken for the Soul book. And I took little events that happened in school. I started writing them down at one point and turning them into modern day parables. Most of all of us, really, to a lesser or greater extent, had spent a good part of our life trying to fit in, right? Especially as teenagers. We just want to fit in. We want to be like everybody else. We want to be accepted, all that kind of stuff. And that pursued for quite a long time in our life before we finally kind of get over that. And so we spend so much time trying to fit in, trying to be what other people want us to be. But my wife wants me to be something. My kids want me to be something else. My students in school want me to be something else. My principal wants me to be like everybody wants you to be something different.
Yes.
And it's possible to be what everybody wants. And so at some point in your life, you got to kind of make this transition into saying, piss on it.
Yeah.
I'm going to be me.
Yes.
And they're actually part of the process. And I told my students in school sometimes this, and I tell my grandchildren this too, as they get to the teenage years, that the second decade of our life is really where we're supposed to try to figure out who we are as separate from our parents, right? The first decade, roughly, of our life, everybody identifies with their parents. Little girls want to be just like their moms. Little boys want to be just like their dads. And we got a picture of one of my kids about 4 years old or something. I'm out cutting the grass, pushing the lawnmower, and he's right along beside me with this little plastic lawnmower. He's pushing the lawn right beside me. It's a beautiful example of how little kids, they want to be just little boys, they want to be just like daddy and stuff. So that's our first decade of life. In fact, there's a name for this, right? They call it imprinting. Right? If you take a baby gosling, a baby goose, this is even in children's books. And the first thing they see, they identify with. And so, they're supposed to see their mother first thing or whoever's sitting on the eggs. But if they see something else, then they tend to think, oh, that's what I am. So that first decade of life is important for us to figure out that, oh, my parents, that's kind of what I'm supposed to be like. But then in the second decade, you begin to realize gradually that I'm not just a mini me. Right? I'm not just a little version of my mother or a little version of my father. And then we kind of start on this search that often takes the rest of our life, is trying to figure out, who am I?
Yes.
And all of us probably remember at times during our teenage years where we take on personas, particularly whatever the fad is. In my teenage years, It's the tail end of the hippie years. Okay, I'm going to be a hippie, and grew my hair longer and started saying things that hippies say and wearing hippie type clothes and all that kind of stuff. And I had posters. That was the thing, right? Late 60s, early 70s, had posters all over the place, all over my room and your locker at school, and stickers. Now, I don't know if anybody remembers that was a big time for stickers. You had to get stickers all over everything. I don't know, because I was really into music, right? So I had stickers all over my instrument cases and all that kind of stuff.
And your
So
notebooks
we
at school and everything. Your locker.
stickers everywhere. So that kind of was a fad. It kind of changed after a while. But then we try on these personas. And oftentimes it's some character on television or the movies or a movie star that we try to be like this. I remember one of my sons. So my kids were born in the 80s, kind of growing up in the 90s. And what's her name? That blonde singer who was big at that time. Yeah, Britney Spears. So one of my sons, he was actually a member, a real life member of the official Future Husbands of Britney Spears Club. Hundreds of thousands of teenage boys want to marry Britney Spears, right?
Poor Brittany.
Identify all these crazy things, right? So we go through these stages very often in our teenage years. Oh, I identify with this, identify with that. And that word is even so common today, right? And it's become utterly bizarre, right?
Yeah.
I identify as a puppy dog, or I identify
As
as
a
a pussycat. Goodness sakes, at least keep it human, my friend. So we go through this, right? Trying to figure out, who am I? Am I really a puppy dog? No, you're not a puppy dog.
Oh, you're not a puppy.
So,
So don't be
for
on the sidewalk.
yeah, that's right. Or on the bedpost. Right?
Right.
So yeah, we go through a great part of our life trying to figure out, who am I really? And asking and answering that question is a big part of what my mission is at this point in my life, trying to help people understand and ask that question, who am I really? Because most of us identify with our body, right? I'm I'm an old I'm an old white man, right?
Or our job, or our work.
Or we identify with a job, our social position, or the role that we're playing. I'm a welder. I'm whatever. I'm the governor of this state, or whatever. We identify with all this stuff. And every spiritual teacher warns us against that, right? That's attachment. That's attachment, right? Jesus said that in the Beatitudes, right? Don't get attached to these things. They come and go. Money comes and goes. Fame comes and goes. Social position and status come and go. None of that's who you are.
None of it.
So role that you're playing at a certain point in your life, and I've gone through several careers, have lots of different roles, playing a different role now. But even what I'm doing now, it's still a role. It's not who I am is a soul. That's who I am. I'm a child of God. I'm an eternal child of my Father who is light and love. And so I am also light and love. And so is everybody else. And that's who we are. And the more we learn to identify with who we really are, an eternal being of light and love, the more we understand how we're supposed to behave and live in this life, and the more we're able to do that. That's a long-winded answer to your question.
But it was good. And thinking about your work, what made you decide to guide people back to God? What happened that made you see that was something that was needed, or something that your soul's work was supposed to do?
You know what? I don't very often get asked that question, but it's a very insightful one. For decades, I've been going to church, always praying, God, guide me. What is it you want me to do? Especially at those points in my life where I'm looking for a new job or changing careers and stuff like that. God, guide me. Show me what you want. Show me the way. And I'm not getting anything. After God, I'm not getting your emails, man. I'm a thick-skulled, linear thinking male, right? You can't be too subtle with me. God, you got to slap me upside the head. Show me what it is you want me to do. But that's not how God talks to us. Damn it. You know what? We're subtle than that. So anyway, at one point, I've been teaching for quite a while. I spent almost 2 decades as a teacher, band director. And I realized that maybe I was coming close to the end of my time when I was being useful and productive in that role. And so I spent a lot of time thinking, what am I going to do next? And I'd gone through lots of ideas and explored lots of things for several years. I've always had an interest and an involvement in politics. And there was some things going on in Alberta at that time. So it's 2018 or so. I won't get into the politics, doesn't matter. But I thought, okay, you know what? At this time, somebody like me with the vision, the background, the experience, and the knowledge I have, that I need to throw my hat in the ring because I can make a positive difference here. So that's what I did. I was doing that. And as I was in this, we called it a nomination campaign. You would maybe call it primary or something like that.
Gotcha.
So it's before the election, right? It's the campaign before to decide who's going to be the candidate.
Gotcha.
Yeah, in that particular riding jurisdiction, whatever you want to call it. So I got into this and it wasn't going very well. And it just wasn't getting a whole lot of enthusiasm, people supporting me. The people who had said, oh, if you ever run for politics, I'll be right there. I'll support you. So then I was, okay, I'm running for politics now. Oh, I'm busy. That was a reason.
I really mean that.
Sorry, I just can't right
I never thought you would actually really do it.
That's right. That's right. I was just being polite. So my campaign wasn't going very well. I was starting to wonder, as usual, God, I thought you were directing me here, God. Now, what's going on with that? I'd never done such a thing as this before, but I came across a woman who talked to angels and did this for people. She'd talk to your angels and said what your angels have to say. And something told me, man, I got to connect with this lady. I connected with her and she did what you might call a reading for me, connected with my angels. And she said, tell me, ask questions and I'll see what your angels say about him. So my most important question is, should I be doing this political campaign? And like, where's this going to go? And she said, your angels are telling me that they are doing everything they possibly can to make sure you don't win. Is that what you do is always up to you. If you want to do this, then you can do it. There's still a chance you might be successful, but if you are successful, you're going to find this very frustrating. You're going to find that you're very constricted, that you really don't have impact on decision making anyway. You're not going to be happy with this if you do that. That's why your angels are working against it. And I said, what the heck am I supposed to do? And she said, your angels are telling me you're supposed to be a writer. I thought, what? About of all the things I've thought about for a kind of career to end off my life with, I never ever thought about that. They said, no, that you're like, this is the mission you came here to do, is that you're meant to be a writer and you're supposed to write about spiritual things. So I thought, oh, wow, that's different. So it took me a while to kind of change gears in my mind and think, is that right? Well, I am running into a lot of resistance in this political campaign where I'm really not getting anywhere. And it's pretty obvious that I'm going to get literally trounced by this other guy. So
let this go.
So I dropped out of the political campaign quite suddenly. And I'm sure my wife and other people were pretty surprised that I just changed my mind. And then I started working on my first book. So years before that, actually, I had made a little bit of a start. Because a lot of times as a teacher, there's really funny things that happen in class. So I started writing down one or two of those funny things that I should make a book of humor, because there's several people who have written funny books about their careers. I'm thinking of All Things Bright and Beautiful, the English veterinarian who wrote about funny things that happened when he was a vet. It became a best-selling book. Sometimes people who write books of humor about funny things that happen in their particular professions, but this can be quite impactful. I can do this, but that didn't really go anywhere. And so it was almost at least 15 years later when I thought, okay, this really should be a spiritual book and helping people to understand, because the whole spiritual realm complicated. Those people who get, and many people are like this, right? You get into a religion, you start going to a church, And you stick with that church, you stick with that religion, you stick with that theology. You got to learn it reasonably well, or as much as you want to learn anyway. And you just go along with that. But for the true seeker after truth,
Yeah,
we tend to flit around and we're reading stuff. And I've been like that since I was a teenager.
me
It
too.
was interesting that I grew up in an atheist family. Both my parents confirmed atheists. And the one thing about that, it was very freeing because they didn't care what I read or what I thought. They thought it was all nonsense anyway. I read all kinds of things. I read the Bible, but I also later in high school, I read the Quran, at least most of it. It's really boring. I don't know if you've ever tried to read the
Yes,
Quran, but
yes,
it's the most boring and it's full of fire and brimstone.
yeah.
If you're anybody's listening who's a pastor and you're looking for material for a fire and brimstone speech, read the Quran, man. It's just full of it. Anyway, which is not like Jesus, right? Jesus talks about love and peace, get along with each other, but the Quran's full of fire and brimstone. These guys are going to get all burned up, and God's going to come down and kill everybody. Whatever, all kinds of stuff like that in the Quran. But I read the Bhagavad Gita. I read Siddhartha by Herman Hesse, which is kind of a somewhat fictionalized story about the life of Gautama, Siddhartha Gautama, who became the Buddha. So I was reading all kinds of things, even as a teenager. So I read philosophy. I was reading Plato and stuff like that as a teenager. So I was always very omnivorous in my reading and interest in metaphysics and religion and spirituality, all that kind of stuff. I became Catholic after I got married. And that was really interesting learning about that. And I was particularly interested in esoteric Christianity, in the mystical aspect, and the Catholicism Christian history. We have all kinds of saints who were great seers and mystics, all kinds of fascinating to look into that. And most people don't. Most people avoid that aspect of
Right.
Christianity. So I had all these things.
And you know that's on
And I was
purpose.
teaching in the Catholic school. So I've been teaching religion at the junior and senior high school level. So I know I'm not a priest, I'm not a pastor, I
Right.
don't have a degree in theology or anything like that, but it's probably a good thing, actually. I just have this 40 or 50 years of being a spiritual seeker, and I can share what I know. So that's what I do. I don't claim to be a guru. I'm not an expert in anything. But as a teacher, we teach what we know. And when I was just a teenager and I got really into skiing, I live in Alberta. Winter lasts for half the year. So you might as well get involved in winter sports or you're going to be miserable. So I got involved in downhill skiing and did some of that. And I also coached younger kids in skiing. And I did the same thing even when I was on the summer club swim team. And I became a swimming instructor. So I was teaching as a teenager, right? I was teaching swimming to little kids. I wasn't an expert swimmer, right? I wasn't a Mark Spitz. I wasn't an Olympic champion or anything like that. But all of us know something that we can teach to somebody else.
Yes.
And our band director, because I was really involved in band and went off into music. That was my first love in life and my first career. Our band director set things up so that the older students gave private lessons to the younger students. And so I did 5 years, junior and senior high school, teaching younger students. And it's great. And so you don't have to know everything. You don't even have to know a lot to be a teacher. You just have to know something that somebody else doesn't know that you can teach to them.
Yeah.
And so I call myself a spiritual teacher, but like I don't claim to be a master, but I'm sharing what I know. And I think so, Tammy. That's how I got into writing spiritual books. That was your question.
That was perfect because that actually gave a whole background of what would have wanted to know because so many people are out here that would do this work, but they have all these misconceptions about who you can be. Just like you said, you call yourself a spiritual teacher, but you don't know everything. And I'm like, no, I call myself a spiritual teacher as well. I know what I know. And there are things that I know that other people don't know. And there are things that other people know that I don't. You and I same. You're a spiritual teacher. I'm a spiritual teacher. I'm sure that I teach in different ways than you do. And I'm sure that there are different focuses even in that, because spirituality is just so vast and there's so
Yeah.
much and so
Yeah.
many rabbit holes that we could go.
Yes.
But I think that I want to talk about the fact that being raised with atheists, I think that was the greatest gift when you think about it, because you didn't have to unlearn a lot of the things that people like me that were raised in Pentecostal religion mostly. There are so many things you have to unlearn, so much brainwash and manipulation that you have to come out from under and stuff because this was the culture, you know what I mean? And I think that was just like, to me, that was the greatest gift. Like you said, freedom, because then that gave you the opportunity to explore different things, and see things from different perspectives. Whereas I was like you at 15, I read the autobiography of a yogi
Oh,
because
it's on my reading list.
I was going to
I'm
say,
always as a writer now, I'm always reading too. And I got stacks of books on the go. And I have an even bigger list. I got to read that one someday.
yeah,
Yeah. So yeah,
I-
autobiography of Yogi. That's great. That's a famous one.
I'm listening to it again because, of course, I don't remember that much of it from
Yeah.
15. But I remember reading it and I was doing yoga at the time, which the church said was the devil. But I was doing yoga and I was doing meditation and different things like that at 15. So I was like, all right. And so I'm listening to it now. I have it pulled up on YouTube. And you can pull up, yeah, you can pull up the audiobooks right on YouTube. So I'm listening to it again now. But my point for that was when you come up where, to me, it's like you had a clean slate.
Yeah.
Like me, I had to hide that stuff.
Yeah.
That stuff was of the devil and things like that. And just like my poor babies, they told them that Pokemon was of the devil. And what was the other thing? Harry Potter. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, oh my God. And so when I hear people that had a clean slate and you could just come in and just explore what your soul wanted to explore without any consequences.
Yeah. No restrictions, no judgment.
Right.
Nobody, you didn't have to hide the book under your underwear in the drawer or something like that. Where your mother hopefully wouldn't look, except when
Right.
you put your clothes away.
I think about that as how, but I always say that our experiences were tailor made for us.
Where what?
Our experiences were tailor made for us.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So
Well,
whatever.
because we created them, really.
Yes, yes, yes. And it's when I consider that and when I speak to people even about that, they're like, what? I said, yeah, that you decide to do this. This is what you created for yourself.
Yeah.
It's not anybody else. So you can't be running around here blaming somebody else for this thing that you created.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very hard to accept. This is a very unchristian idea that we chose to come here into the body that we're in, into the family that we chose this. It's interesting. I was at a little conference probably 3 years ago now, and I got to talking with this young couple. They had 5 or 6 kids. I can't remember which one it is. They had a family of kids. I got 4 kids and 9 grandchildren now. So it's my grandchildren that are growing up now. Anyway, they had 5 or 6 kids, and not many people have that big a family anymore. And they said, yeah, we were going to cut it off. Okay, man, let's just say they have 6 now. We were going to cut it off at 5. We figured that was enough. And we talked to the other kids, and they said, probably 5 of us is enough, and it's all good. And then, because this woman was somewhat psychic too. So then I got this message that there's another baby coming, that there's another soul that wants to come in here. And at first I was going, oh, no, we're done. But this little soul really wanted to come in. And so I said, who knows, whatever. And when she realized she was pregnant, of course, as women sometimes do, right? They thought back and said, hold it. And maybe you have experienced this too, but by the time when you first get married, you can have sex every night of the week.
Yep.
You get lots of time going over whatever. But when you got 3 or 4 or 5 kids already in the house, look, by the time you finally get to bed at night, everybody's tired. It just doesn't happen that much.
And you don't know this, you're just exactly exhausted and you can't even think that's your last thought. What? Leave me alone.
Right.
To me.
So anyway, so she already had 5 kids. She realized she was pregnant again. And she thought back, she realized the only time she was a well-educated woman, she knew enough about her cycle to know when she was really fertile, when she wasn't. And she thought back, she said, the only time that could have happened was this one time, but that was the time I wasn't very fertile. Usually The sperm only survive for 2 to 3 days usually.
Like
So you have sexual
72 hours or
intercourse
something.
pretty close to that window of fertility usually. And the older you get, the less fertile you become, right? When you're 16 years old, you can probably just any day of the week, you're going to get pregnant, girl. But by the time you're 36, yeah, it's not so easy anymore. So she thought back, she said, it would have to be then, but it's impossible that it couldn't have happened. Anyways, one more child. And so kind of intuitively or psychically, whatever, I can't remember how she was getting these messages from the soul that had come into this baby that was growing within her. But anyway, she had this conversation at one point. She told me, but she said, or the soul that was coming in said, oh, I really need to be your child. And I need to be born here. And so she said, oh, is that because I'm such a good mother? And the soul said, no, because I want to be with the brothers and sisters. Again, she was a little bit crushed by this, humbled by this, right now. Oh, but anyway, that was a funny story. So in that particular case, rare as it is, because of that woman's psychic connection, she was able to realize that, yeah, that soul definitely was true, really wanted, and made things happen that seemed highly unlikely from a biological perspective, right? But this soul made it happen. It came in because that soul really wanted to come in and be with that group of brothers and sisters.
Seeing that, and you're right, it blasts your whole concept.
Yeah.
When you come from a Christian, especially a Christian perspective, I can speak on that because I went through this whole thing about the last 2 years about choosing my parents because when I learned that, I thought, no way. There is
Couldn't have
no
chosen that.
way. I'm like, there's no way on earth that I, in my right mind, chose them. I went through this whole, like a real serious healing around that. And it took me about 2 years to really get to the place. And then I also realized they showed me that the reason I chose them wasn't so that they could parent me. Wasn't for that. I chose them to come here and help them. And as I looked through and I saw different things, it was evident. I was like, oh, because I was at this space where I was feeling like nobody really cared. And this is how I felt because my grandmother raised me for quite a while. And so she was my person. She's my person. I used to say, think that I'm really her child. They lied to me. Which, you know. But when she left, oh my God, I tell you, it was something. But I realized also, I was like, okay, so this is the reason why. Because I kept trying to figure it out. I was like, I never really felt like I got nurtured from neither one of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. And I always felt like I was the one that was always giving the nurturing even to them.
Yeah.
And still to this day. So I was like, oh, because they were really young. I was born. And I said, there's no way I could have chose them. No way. I was like, what was going through my mind?
You're thinking, and all of us do, when we're introduced to that concept, we think in terms of our conscious mind and our personality that we have right now.
Yeah.
We're not thinking the way our soul thinks
Yeah.
because we're that much disconnected from our soul. So yeah, we chose to come in. All of us, we learn, and as a teacher, right? The struggle is part of the learning. I've been a band director, music teacher, taught kids to learn musical instruments, and it's hard to learn to play musical. It's not easy.
No.
It's hard, and I get it. And I think in one of my parables, I have this: the student says something like, "Oh, but Mr. Lee, this is really hard." And I say, "Oh, that's good, because you know what? It was hard for me too, and I'd be really pissed off if it was any easier for you."
I love that.
It's not just that; it's that the struggle is necessary for our learning. And it's hard for us to really understand that. But we'd like to just learn we all want the easy way for everything, right? We want to learn the easy way.
Yes.
And
You want a microwave learn.
yeah,
What wasn't Bewitched?
yeah, there won't be a lot of our listeners that remember Bewitched. My goodness, that goes back to the 60s.
I was gonna say Bewitched, I Dream of Jeannie. Yes, those were my shows.
Yeah. Yeah. Gilligan's Island.
Yes, you think about that as, oh my God. And then I told somebody, I said, really, we're supposed to be living like the Jetsons.
Actually, okay, to a certain extent, we are, right?
Yeah, but my
The
car ain't
cell phone.
flying yet. My car is not flying.
No, but we pretty much have that technology. It's just not widespread yet. But the cell phone, my goodness, even I don't think even those early things like the Jetsons had the Star Trek didn't. Yeah, but it didn't really have the idea that your phone, your communication device, would be so many other things.
Yes,
Would it be the whole,
you
basically the whole world's library
it's right.
in a little thing in the palm of your hand?
The phone had
You
a
know,
healing thing on it. You remember?
it did have
After
that.
one of
Yeah,
those the other day, they
but
like a
yeah,
people on the phone.
yeah, diagnose people and stuff like that.
Yeah, and then no surgery or anything because surgery was barbaric.
Yeah. Anyway, we're getting the most important thing is not the little technological device, but the change in consciousness. That's the most important thing we need to have happen.
Yes, I am so, yeah, I know that is a thing. My son is working on this heart protocol and is working with AI and empathy and the frameworks and some of the structures of it. So I'm super grateful.
How do you program empathy into AI? Am I understanding this right?
Now, I don't know exactly how that works. And I think that's a part of the work that he's doing. But yeah, I don't understand it. I just know that it is. And the passion that he has for his work and the things that he's doing and the moves that he's making as far as that is, oh my God, you know what I mean? I get that though. I feel like if we could live in a world where consciousness overruled everything,
Guides everything, brother.
yes, I think it would be amazing. So, in light of that, I'm going to ask you the question that I ask all of my guests. If there was one thing in the world that you could change, what would that be and why?
Okay, the one thing that I would change, and I can't because I can only change myself, but if I could change other people, I would open their hearts to the love that is already within them.
Yeah.
Because, as I've written in my books, we are meant to be channels for the love of God. We can never be without love because we can never be without God. Right? As St. Paul famously said in his speech in Athens, right? It is in God that we live and move and have our being. And
Yeah.
if we understand, as St. John said, that God is love, we've always understood this as a metaphor. What if it's not a metaphor? What if he intended it literally, that God is love? Then it is in love that we live and move and have our being. We
Yeah.
are simply blocking the flow of love.
Yeah.
And I wrote in one of my little parables that love is energy, really, right? But I compared love to other forms of energy. And we learn in junior high school usually about kinetic energy and potential energy. Kinetic energy is flowing. The lights are on in my house right now. So electricity is flowing through the wires and making the lights light up. But we also have potential energy, and potential electrical energy can be stored in a battery, right? It just sits there. It's
Right.
only but hold on to the negative and positive poles of the battery, and the kinetic energy will flow through you, right? And then you'll feel it. Love is like that. Love is always within us because God is within us, right? So the love is always there. If we're not feeling love, it's because we've blocked it.
Yeah.
We feel love not when others love us, but when we love others,
Yeah.
when we allow that love to flow through us. And it's really not us making the love, it's God. And we're
Yes.
just being a channel for that love to flow through us. So if people would just stop blocking the love that's already within us and let that flow, the whole world would change overnight.
That is, I think that's the first time I've gotten that answer.
Yeah, and I'm glad I've been able to share something unique.
It's amazing, and I believe in what you're saying because that is the same way that I feel. I feel it's all we need is love, and I keep singing that. You know, the Beatles, all we
Yep.
need is
All we need is love.
love is all we need. And I keep singing that, and I keep thinking about that, and I keep putting that here
Yeah,
instead of all the chaos and all the whatever's going on. I don't even give a shit. I think there's so much going on and so much chaos, and they would have us to focus on that and harvest our energy. And I'm not doing it because I
that's right.
called all of my energy back to me from every time, space, and dimension and frequency. But I could talk to you all day. However, we're going to land this plane. This has been such a conversation.
I knew we'd have a wonderful conversation. I really enjoyed speaking with you at Podfest, and it's been a joy to speak with you today as well, Tammy. Thank you so much for having me on your show. God bless you and your journey, and God bless you and your work.
Thank you, and you as well. Thank you so much for watching us on Straight Outta Savannah, where the magic happens. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe, and make sure that you check out Samuel. Why am I calling you Samuel? Finally!
Donald.
His links will be in the show notes and everywhere that you can find him. Where is the best place for people to connect with you?
The best place is actually my website. It's easy to remember. It's cominghomespirit.com because all of us are on a journey, a spiritual journey back home to God. So if you just put in cominghomespirit.com, you'll get there. And actually, if you go to my website, there's two little free mini ebooks. One is for those of you who are watching, right? This is my book of parables, the band director's lessons about life, 50 little parables. I've taken 5 of the 50 parables, and I've put them together with the introduction and a few other parts, and I put them into a little free book that you can get for free. If you want to go to my website, you'll find links to click that and download that, and I'm sure you'll enjoy the parables.
Very
Free
nice.
gift to all of our listeners.
Very nice. I love that. Thank you. So thank you so much for joining us. Wherever you're listening or watching, make sure that you like, share, subscribe, and download. It really helps the show so that we can push more out here and get more people here that can share this wonderful consciousness with you.